Good morning. I'm Karen Hamstra. Welcome to Title Talk on Monday, August 19th. I have some new books to show you. The first one is by the ever popular crime writer Bill Pronzini. It's called The Peaceful Valley Crime Wave. Takes place out in northwest Montana in 1914, and the Peaceful Valley has indeed lived up to his name since Sheriff Lucas Monk took over the badge. But now the mysterious theft of a wooden cigar store Indian sets off a week-long crime wave. Beautiful but wild teenager Charity Axthelm goes missing. Gossip-mongering Reba Purvis's housekeeper is poisoned by a glass of cyanide-laced buttermilk that Reba was sure was meant for her instead of her housekeeper. And other misdeeds begin to pile up at an alarming rate. Cold-blooded murder and the threat of more violence make matters more tense. Only dogged determination and shrewd detective work by Lucas Monk can solve each of the crimes and restore the peace. So, The Peaceful Valley Crime Wave, Bill Pronzini. He has been popular for a long time, and I've no doubt he won't disappoint you this time. Here's another longtime popular author who has a new book out after kind of a hiatus, Stephen Kuntz, and it is called The Russia Account. As you might expect, it has a little something to do with Russia. In this one, burglar turned CIA warrior Tommy Carmelini, who has starred in 8 previous Kuntz theater thrillers, with the help of his mentor, Admiral Grafton, Carmelini has always managed to foil his enemies, discovering and defeating the powerful forces behind a massive, blood-stained financial conspiracy in this book that threatens the very foundations of the United States government, and maybe the life of the President of the United States will be his most challenging case yet, assignment, and perhaps, he suspects, an impossible one. This book is by turns thrilling, shocking, and even prophetic. It's Kuntz in top form, and if you're a Kuntz fan, you won't want to miss it. The Russia Account. Vow of Justice by Lynette Eason. This features her main character, FBI Special Agent Lincoln St. John, and he is living his own personal nightmare because the woman he loved, Allison Radcliffe, has been killed, and he devotes himself to tracking down her killer. But he expected it to be a challenge, but what he finds out is that Allison is very much still alive shortly after her murder. As his anger and hurt mix with relief, Link isn't sure how he's supposed to feel. One thing he does know for sure, he and Allison will have to work together to stop a killer before she dies a second time, and this time for good. So, Vow of Justice by Lynette Eason. The Bird Boys by Lisa Sandlin. This is about a private investigator's secretary, whose name is Delpha Wade. And as she's released from the hospital, she's ushered into the back of a police cruiser, and she's accused of murder, and her boss, PI Tom Phelan, knows she killed in self-defense, and he sets out to spring her loose. He needs her back in his investigation business, where he'll soon be chasing a skulking grand larcenist and plotting how to keep a ganjapreneur out of the grabby hands of a brand new agency, the DEA. So, Delpha to the rescue once he gets her off the hook for murder. Lisa Sandlin, The Bird Boys. It's a Delpha Wade and Tom Phelan mystery. This is a nonfiction book by Alexandra Fuller. Some of you may remember her first big hit, Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight. This one is called Travel Light, Move Fast. It is another story of her parents' life in Africa. Her father has now died, and the background of the novel is that she undertook writing this book to help her work through her grief. And it's not too long a book, but gets excellent reviews. It can be found at 968.91 with the Africa Books under FUL. And I'll probably read this one myself. I very much have enjoyed her other books. Back to novels. The Dearly Beloved, a novel by Kara Wall. In this one, it's about the story of two couples in New York City in 1963. The two men are jointly hired to steward the historic Third Presbyterian Church through turbulent times, but their personal differences threaten to tear them apart. It's a couple named Charles and Lily, and James and Nan. And Charles is supposed to succeed his father as an esteemed history professor at Harvard. Lily, who he falls in love with, is fiercely intellectual and elegantly stern, and she often tells him with certainty that she will never believe in God. James, meanwhile, is the youngest son of a very poor, hardscrabble Chicago family. He grew up with an alcoholic father, and his wife, Nan, grew up in Mississippi, the beloved daughter of a minister, and she was a debutante. So you can see there's really very different backgrounds among these four characters. And in the book, we follow the two couples through decades of love and friendship, jealousy and understanding, forgiveness and commitment, and it's all against the backdrop of turbulent changes facing the city and the church's congregation. It's not particularly a Christian book, it's just a novel, The Dearly Beloved by Kara Wall. The World Doesn't Require You by Ryan Amilcar Scott. This is a book of short stories, and they are all based around a town that apparently Scott has dreamed up. It's the fictional town of Cross River, Maryland. And it's just the story of its residents, wildly spanning decades, perspectives, and species. And among the residents are David Sherman, a struggling musician who just happens to be God's last son, Tyrone, a ruthless PhD candidate whose dissertation about a childhood game ignites mayhem in the neighboring once segregated town of Port Yuga, and Jim, an all too obedient robot who serves his master. The author had a previous book which was really successful, and I would like to tell you what its name was. His first book was called Insurrections, and it won the Penn Robert W. Bingham Prize for debut fiction. So he's back. Ryan Scott, The World Doesn't Require You, on the fiction shelf. And last but not least, we have a book called The Whisper Man by Alex North, also a novel. This is a suspense book that has been recommended by the likes of Brad Meltzer and Alex Michaelides, AJ Finn, and CJ Tudor. It will satisfy readers of Thomas Harris and Stephen King. It says, if you leave a door half open, soon you'll hear the whispers spoken. After the sudden death of his wife, Tom Kennedy believes a fresh start will help him and his youngest son, Jake, heal. A new beginning, a new house, a new town, Featherbank. But the town has a dark past, and just as Tom and Jake settle into their new home, a young boy vanishes. His disappearance bears an unnerving resemblance to the previous crime spree, and it reignites old rumors that he had an accomplice helping him. So now detectives Amanda Beck and Pete Willis must find the boy before it's too late. And then Jake, the son of Tom Kennedy, who I mentioned first, begins acting strangely. He hears a whispering at his window. The Whisper Man by Alex North. So I hope maybe one of these piqued your interest a little bit, and you'll come down and check out our new books. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.